Welcome to A Dark Path, a podcast exploring the depths of witchcraft, magic, the occult, and all things mysterious. Join us on this journey into the unknown, down a dark path overgrown. Find spells and rituals, folklore and legends. Come, set your candles alight to clear your mind and unwind. Delve into the shadows to uncover a dark path.
Hail and welcome to A Dark Path, a podcast exploring the depths of witchcraft, magic, the occult, and all things mysterious. I'm Allyson Hemma-Romane. I'm your host, Allyson Hemma-Romane, actually.
I am your demi-permanent host, Heidi Stock.
I am your host, Kristen Jackson. Today's episode is Astral Projection. We've got Holly here with us today, and she is our, I would like to say, resident expert on astral projection here, especially in this group of people, because I've never been able to successfully do anything. So I'm really excited. I really hope that we have a lot of really fun information. I'm just really excited. But anyways, Holly, now I'm going to get Holly and Heidi, and I'm going to screw you guys up all day, I feel like.
Highly.
Won't be the first time.
Okay.
Don't worry.
I'll answer.
Right? So, okay, Holly, who are you?
You know, this was one of the harder questions that you guys sent me. My name is Holly, and yeah, I'm growing. So I am a growing person. I'm really not sure how to answer that one, you guys. I'm sorry. I thought about it a lot, but who I am is me. I'm me.
That's the perfect answer, Holly.
I am me.
And then what is it that you do?
I do many things. I don't really do any spiritual work professionally. I do a lot of energy work for myself and spiritual work, but I'm not currently a practitioner, but I do many things.
Do you call yourself a witch?
I am very, I am a witch. I am very thankful that that's part of my makeup. I also don't typically call myself anything. So I do identify that way, but I identify as many things. So a witch is definitely part of that.
I feel like with the answers that you're giving, you should tell everyone what your big three are.
Well, it depends on if you use a lunar or a solar kind of astrology.
Okay.
In typical astrology, I am a Gemini, Gemini, Pisces rising, Pisces moon. And in solar astrology, I am a Taurus, Pisces moon, Aquarius rising.
You're still a Pisces moon either way.
I am a Pisces moon.
Get it?
It's true.
Let's get into defining astral projection. I went a little lazy because I liked the answer from Wikipedia. You know, normally I don't use Wikipedia, but I really liked the answer from Wikipedia, so we've got it, okay? In esotericism, astral projection, also known as astral travel, soul journey, soul wandering, spiritual journey, and spiritual travel, is an intentional out-of-body experience, which they've abbreviated OBE, which is fucking gnarly, in which a subtle body, known as the astral body or body of light through which consciousness functions separately from the physical body, travels throughout the astral plane. The idea of astral travel is ancient and occurs in multiple cultures. The term astral projection was coined and promoted by 19th century theosophists. It is sometimes associated with dreams and forms of meditation, which we're going to talk about in our second segment, which will be a later episode. Some individuals have reported, although I think we'll touch on it today, some individuals have reported perceptions similar to descriptions of astral projection that were induced through various hallucinogenic and hypnotic means, including self-hypnosis. There is no scientific evidence that there is a consciousness whose embodied functions are separate from normal neural activity or that one can consciously leave the body and make observations of the physical universe. As a result, astral projection has been categorized as a pseudoscience. There are various recorded accounts from across cultures, though, notably ancient Egyptian, Amazonian, Inuit, Hindu, Japanese, Judaism, Christianity, and Western esotericism. What I want to know is, dear sweet Holly, what is astral projection to you?
I was very thankful to be invited to be here today. Thank you. It really gave me the obviously to come on and talk to you guys, but it really gave me the opportunity to try to sit down and solidify some of my thoughts and ideas around this, because for me and the way that I think and categorize information within my brain, I have really shied away from defining some things and looking things up on the internet and even asking a lot of questions sometimes, because I tend to have the way that I categorize the information will sometimes be limiting to me, or I will get caught up in the semantics of things instead of allowing for the experience.
Do you feel like you like to allow intuition to lead this process?
I do, with everything that I'm learning. So it's the way that I prefer to do it is to allow it to kind of happen and then process afterward. Because if I try to do any kind of processing or even really a lot of question asking while I'm in that state, I will come out of it pretty easily, or I interrupt myself, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Your attitude on it is why I really wanted to have you on the show personally, because we've talked about it intimately a few times when doing level 2 Reiki certification, right? I didn't realize that I was potentially doing astral projection in a meditative state until we had talked about it. And your process is similar to mine, right? So I felt like having someone who's been doing it for longer, even if it's only a little longer, is helpful. Because I have no idea.
Well, I was thinking about like, is what I'm doing actually astral projection? Because like they said, it's this spirit journey, the traveling, all of that. And it's like, is it all astral projection? Is only part of it astral projection? And so I really had to sit down and think about the experiences that I've had and try to kind of sort through and decide which ones I thought were more projections, and if I thought there was a difference between projection and, like, say, a journey of some kind.
How do you know if you are projecting? Do you always know?
I don't always know. I have had experiences where it's very clear that that is what's going on because of the feeling in my body, what I'm seeing. I've had experiences where I can feel myself leaving, right? But I also will have experiences that very much feel like it's just I'm being shown something, right? Where I'm not necessarily, I don't have a recollection of a physical traveling. Like often I'll fly or swim or something like that. And I do have experiences where I really am just seeing something. So in my opinion, it's not always easy to tell exactly what's going on. But the really interesting part of the definition for me was that it's the subtle body known as the astral body or body of light through which consciousness functions separately from the physical body, travels through the astral plane. So for me, it's that engagement of your light body, your subtle body, your energetic body that is doing the interaction.
It sounds like maybe you don't always decide where you go, and maybe you don't even always know where you went.
I know personally that has been kind of true for me, but with intention, I can typically decide where I'm going to go. It's just, and actually, I shouldn't even say typically. With intent, I can decide where I'm going to go. I set my intention for the type of thing I'm trying to do, but I may go somewhere that I don't recognize, haven't been before.
And if you find you don't like that, can you just quit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
If I'm not astral projecting, is that something else that it could be?
That is exactly what I've been thinking about, Kristen. I'm like, is there something else it could be? And I landed on there must be, or yes, probably. But I'm also realizing that my definition of astral projection is large. I think that it's like more of a blanket term for traveling, right? So it's not, I was caught up in the word astral and the connection to the actual astral realm as opposed to that type of energy, I guess. So
I'd always thought of it as just being meditation, but when I meditate, it's like I go to the same space. There's like this glade that I'd come up with a therapist in like intensive therapy. So it's like the safest place that I could come up with, like super chill, super calm. So I always go to this place. But then once I started learning Reiki, I started to dive into the water. And then I would travel, I would swim all the way down to the bottom, but there was no bottom. And eventually I was just swimming up again. And then I would surface and I would be in this totally different place, kind of like arid with mountains and like snow covered. And I looked it up. It's a real place in Wales. And it's like a portal to the other world. And this was the conversation that I had with Holly. She's like, bro, I think you're astral projecting. I was like, I'm just meditating. I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, so I'd always thought that it was just meditation.
me too. I mean, honestly, because your experience, Ellie, is so similar to one of my very first experiences. I would go to this meadow, and then one day I got in the river and I went swimming. And when I came up, I went to a city. It reminded me of the city square in Dubrovnik, Croatia. It was like an old city square. But then eventually, when I would go under the water and I would come back up, I would be in a new place. And it was like this tropical kind of glade. But I mean, it's a very similar kind of way that you did that. That's funny.
That's really interesting because my sister astral projects too, and she always goes tropical. So she has the same kind of a thing where she dives into the water and then swims through the Susquehanna River and then ends up somewhere tropical with like palm trees and but there's an orca whale there. I don't know. I know, very interesting imagery. Yeah.
See, and I think that my tropical space is not, it would not be an earthly space. The sky is purple. So it's, you know what I mean? Like it's not Earth, but it's very cool that you know which river you're going into. And
My sister, yeah.
yeah, that's super interesting.
Can I ask both of you guys a question? When you have an experience like that, do you still find meditation restorative or does it become kind of draining?
For me, those are the most restorative. Usually when I'm doing something like that, for me, it has been a lot of visiting past lives memories that I do that way. Like, for instance, in that specific instance, when I felt like when I came up out of the water and wasn't in the meadow anymore, but was in this other tropical place, it felt like if you were thinking about levels, it felt like a level up. You know what I mean? Like it felt like it was a higher vibrational place, or it was like I was going to learn new things there or be in a different space energetically. So I have personally found it restorative.
Each time that I go, I end up meeting with like an entity or like a deity. So like an ancestor of mine or a deity. It's like when you've had a really, 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 really bad day and then you go home and it just feels like really cozy when you like get through the door. That's what it feels like for me. So yeah, it's super restorative.
So then, to be clear, is there a situation in which you could your body could get hurt? Like what happens to your body when you're astral projecting? And can you get hurt physically, or is it only something that you could get hurt psychically? Like, what do you feel like the risks are?
Well, there are mundane things to pay attention to where you're choosing to do this. You know what I mean? If you're choosing to go into an actual meditative state where you're going to sit and you're going to close your eyes, or you're going to lay down and you're going to close your eyes, be safe. And, you know, like mundane things, like depending on how long you're going to do that, you know, if you have health issues that you need to pay attention to for long periods of time, like, you know, something like diabetes or something, that's a physical thing that could affect you while you're doing meditative work. But I personally think the risk is more psychological and emotional, because meditation can bring up deep feelings and past traumas and all of those things that if you are feeling off kilter at all, or, you know, what's the word I want to use, guys?
It kind of goes back to intention.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. So psychological, I would say being able to let those energies go if you do encounter something traumatic, something that's upsetting to you, having the skills to be able to then address that, release it, and move through it. And if you feel like that's not something that would be an option for you, knowing what your resources are for if you don't feel good when you're done. Because I do think that there's a psychological risk if you're dealing with those thoughts, or you have something come up that is traumatic, and then you have to be able to not get stuck in that thought form and have that not carry into your waking life, and have it not just be stuck in your energetic body and you're carrying it around in your emotions, because that I personally don't find that helpful. So I believe that is the risk. As far as it hurting your physical body, yes, we know that emotions and those things that we carry do affect our physical bodies. So the answer is yes, but I personally don't think about like going to the astral realm and having someone stab my spirit body and waking up with a knife wound or something like that. Like that's not that I don't think so.
No more dangerous than any healing. Like,
Yeah. And I mean, I won't say yes to that, but I will say yes. I think
similarly.
yes, exactly. It's going to bring up emotions. It's going to bring up those things. I do personally believe that there are energies that you don't really want to interact with, and that those would be present in those places potentially.
Do you need to do protection rituals or grounding practices before or even after you do any kind of projection?
I would say absolutely. That's in my opinion, absolutely yes. I mean, I don't know that there's like a specific one that you need to do, you know, but I make sure that I do my typical shielding practices, because if you think about the way that the energies work, right? You know, you draw things to you that are a vibrational match. So you want, or close in vibration, those are the kinds of things that are attracted to you. So you would want your vibration to be as high as possible.
So in that vein, is astral projection for everyone, or would it be better to have a certain level of self-awareness?
I definitely think that that's true. Yes, I think you should do shielding. Yes, I think you should have some self-awareness. So I think that it's helpful to calm your mind, to calm your body, not only with just reaching the right state to be able to do this, but in making sure that when you are there, that you're in the right state to be interacting and doing these things.
Along that line, then, do you think that it's better to astral project without the help of hallucinogens?
I do. And these all go together for sure. Because, okay, so the shielding, you would shield to create, you know, an energetic bubble for yourself while you're moving through these planes. So the thing is, the protection would be You don't want anything, any thought forms that are not helpful, any types of attachments or anything like that from spirit travel. So the shielding is to help with that and the grounding. Having thought forms, thinking while you're doing this, from your brain, from your mind, and it's like having worries or fears come in. Am I doing this right? Am I in the wrong spot? I'm not doing this right. It's not happening. Those things are really hard to not have happen when you're trying to do something like this, but catching them as quickly as possible and releasing them is important, because those are the types of things that can create little chinks in your shielding. And so the quicker that you can find those thoughts and pull them out and clear them and realize that come to the feeling that you are safe, you are intending to do a specific thing, the things that you do to keep your mind calm, to keep your body calm. It's important when you're doing astral projection because of those energies that don't have the best intentions or intentions that are in alignment with yours. So for protection, and then the grounding and protection afterward also is super important, because you want to be able to clear anything that you feel that you've picked up when you've been out and about. What I will say about hallucinogens is, I personally, this might not be right, but I've never done like ayahuasca or mushrooms or anything like that, as far as those hallucinogens that people use in the spiritual community. So I can't really say anything about that. And I know that people have really profound experiences using hallucinogens when they travel. I have only ever used cannabis, but cannabis is it's a 4D plant. So if you want to vibrate in the fourth dimension when you're traveling, that's what you should use. But when you're ready to vibrate higher than that, it can become a hindrance, because the plant naturally is vibrating in that frequency. And in the fourth dimension, that is the astral realm. And it's a place where a lot of energies that are not necessarily in alignment and aren't necessarily for your highest good can hang out. And if you think about where that is in your energy body, in the fourth brain, your emotional body and your mental body are right next to it. So if you have something that's floating around in that astral belt, it's very close to your emotional body. And for me, I know that when I feel like I've had things in that realm of my energy, I can get cranky or reactionary, or just things like that, or I'll do something and think, what in the hell? I don't do that. Why would I do that? And so it's important to also clear and ground yourself afterward, especially if you're going to use something like a hallucinogen. I personally, if I'm going to use something like that, try to think about it as an elemental energy. It is a plant. It is an elemental energy. There's a very natural energy about it. And if you can bring it into your body with that kind of feeling and gratitude around it, and then what I do is I set an intention for my use of that, and I say, I am using this to open my heart, elevate my consciousness. I intend for the plant to match my vibration so that I can hopefully get over that hump, 4D vibrational hump. So that's some points to ponder, I guess. But that's kind of how I think about it. It is open, in my opinion, it opens you up it makes you a little vulnerable. If you are aware of that and you are able to release any feelings of guilt or shame or fear about the vulnerability it creates, or any kind of lower vibrational energies that may come in, that would be important as well. because you don't want to be doing astral travel while you're worried about the fact that you're high. Because then something picks up on that and it becomes a bigger and bigger problem as it gains more energy, right?
I was just gonna ask you, I was gonna say, like, what if it's the first time you've ever done shrooms? Think you should then sit down and try to astral project? I feel
I mean,
like
it sounds like a wild time.
my common sense
I
says
not
no,
have a
no.
choice.
Although if it, but then I was like, oh, but maybe you do that because maybe you only intend ever to do it with the intention of traveling. And I was like, but that is probably why some people travel with a guide.
Yes, and I that's and this is probably not entirely
Like
to agree, I would say. I
both
think
here on this plane and there, right? Just for clarity for everyone listening, I mean like both a human guide or a spiritual guide. Sorry, please continue.
and I have been thinking recently, it's interesting because in thinking about these questions and hallucinogens, for some reason I started thinking about Sid Barrett from Pink Floyd. And I thought to myself, I wonder what percentage of people who have lost their mind after repeated drug use or that, like with hallucinogens, are actually having an astral issue of some sort, or some sort of attachment energy that's where they've had this vulnerability and astral traveled without really realizing what they're doing over and over and over again, without clearing, without being any kind of spiritually aware. So they're, maybe they're living in their shadow and it's not something that they're actively working to resolve, but it did. I was thinking about that when we were talking, because when you're opening yourself up to that vulnerability and you're seeing all these things, that would be, I could see where it could be really pleasant or the opposite.
So, what can you do if there's something like negative following you back or connecting? It's like you've been talking about like releasing it. What are some ways that you can kind of do that?
I'm a big fan of like clearing statements, commanding things from your space, but saying things like, I do not consent. I do not consent to attachments. I do not consent to energy harvesting. I do not consent. That has been powerful for me. I also tend to, one of the things that I do for myself a lot actually is I will pull energy up from the crystalline core of the earth to run through my energy system. And I will pull light down as well and do the same thing. So I will use light to clear my energy. But you can also do things like salt clearings, where you use salt and alcohol and light it on fire, and you use clearing statements to command things from your space. You can do a shadow, and in conjunction with the salt clearing, you can do a shadow vortex. You can open up a vortex to clear shadowy energies from your space and your energies. And this is actually making me realize that one of the things that I would suggest doing before you're doing astral projection, along with shielding, is setting a sacred space. If you don't already have a space that you do your practice in, creating one and setting up a sacred space for yourself that you feel safe in.
What I kind of want to get into is like how do we do it? Like how do you sit down and be like, I'm going to astral project right now? Like what are the steps?
Step one, sacred space.
Yeah. Very much so, yes. Step one, sacred space. So then in that vein, step two would be, calming yourself, getting yourself into a meditative space so that your body and your mind are relaxed. And then three would be creating some sort of shield or protection for yourself. And then I would suggest some type of breathing exercise that you like, because for me, centering, really coming into my own energy, it's helpful with, to use your breath to do that. And I personally use my breath to start the process. So there are a couple of methods you can use. My personal favorite is I will take in a breath of energy. I often will pull it up from the core of the earth, and I will breathe it in to the spot at the base of my sternum. I believe it's called an Hemma point. And I will breathe it into that spot at the base of your sternum. and hold it there, breathe it and hold it and let it build. And then when it feels like it's ready to pop, breathe out and imagine, allow my energy to leave in a bubble. And so I'll create like a bubble around myself, and I can feel myself sitting in an energetic bubble. Sometimes I can see myself that way too, as an energy being, but I'll often be like blue and white, just be like energy. But sometimes you can pop out and be different forms, lots like not humanoid forms. I mean, you can be even just a light. You don't have to look like yourself. That's not a requirement. So there's that method where you can just use a burst of energy basically to create like a little transportation bubble for yourself that you float in. There's also what people refer to as the rollout method or something like that. But you lay down and then you are still, and you imagine and feel your energy rolling out of your body. So you kind of lay there and you'll like imagine bringing up your energy, moving up above your body. And then you kind of use that momentum to feel your energy body. So feeling into that subtle body and just kind of roll out. And then one method that I actually read about that I've never used before, but I tried it today and it worked really well, is a rope method. So imagining a rope above your head and then grabbing it and pulling yourself out. And that worked really well for me. So those are the ways that I do it. I know that there are lots of ways to do it. One of the things that I have found helpful is I will always start from the crystalline core of the earth. I feel safest, like where I will go down, bring my consciousness into the crystalline core of the earth. And then from that space, do that pop out breathing. And then when I pop out, I'm already in that space that feels safe to me, or that feels good to me.
I mean, it definitely sounds like there's many ways to do it, and really no one right way is like necessarily like the right way. It's just what works.
That's my opinion. I do think it's finding what works the easiest and the best for you. I know people who have had experiences doing breath work. I have known people who, like have done it without trying, but then to find the consistent way to do it for yourself, I think is probably a fairly personal thing.
On our trek down a dark path, we reached a hollow in the woods. It seems it's time to catch our breath. A Dark Path is brought to you by
Light the way on your dark path with Wise Wolf Craft's unique selection of tools for living with intention. From manifestation kits to altar items and divination tools, we have everything you need to connect with your inner wisdom. Wise Wolf Craft offers Reiki and other energy healing sessions, divination readings, and a variety of classes on topics like intuitive tarot and personalized spell work. Unleash the power within. Visit Wise Wolf Craft today online at wisewolfcraft.com and on Facebook and Instagram as @WiseWolfCraft. Wise Wolfcraft, tools for living with intention. Needing guidance on your dark path? Explore the mysterious world of Jupiter's Omens, offering handmade rituals, spells, and tools to focus your intention during spell work, vintage altar tools and decor, and intuitive tarot sessions utilizing claircognizance. Visit Jupiter's Omens, where the mystical and macabre meet, at jupitersomens.square.site. That's jupitersomens.square.site.
You talk about like your hand raising up, or kind of coming out in this bubble. So what are the signs that you're about to astral project?
That's a really good question.
How about for you? What are the signs for you?
For me, it is it has typically been a feeling in like my solar plexus area. I will feel like a little kind of,
A swirly vortex?
A little zhuzh.
little movement of some kind. It's not like butterflies, but it is, but it's not, sometimes I feel nothing at all. And then I've had experiences where I could feel myself leaving my body, and it was so visceral. Like I felt like someone was taking, I guess the best way to describe it so you can visualize is like if someone were going to reach in and take your skeleton out the top of your head, you know, like that's how it felt. It was like someone's reaching in and grabbing my energy out and pulling it out the top of my head. And I like my toes were digging in and trying to stay in my body because I didn't know what was happening.
I remember you saying there was a time that like you felt yourself being ripped out of your body and you were like, no, I'm not going. And I think you had said like you held on to the inside of your body.
I did. I
Like,
was using my toes and my hands to like cling to the inside of my body so that my energy would not go out the top of my head because I did not understand what was happening.
so I want to ask really quickly, when did you first start noticing that you were astral projecting? Because I had to be told, right? Like, oh, hey dog, I think you're astral projecting. But like you figured it out, right?
Only kind of. I mean, I really didn't realize I did figure out that I was doing it. One of the first things that I did because I would say it's been about 3.5 years. And it was when I started my spiritual journey, it was one of the first things I started doing. But I didn't really understand that that's what it was.
We got a timeout over here.
Yeah, can we just make a big timeout real quick? Don't we just love that little tidbit about Holly? That was like one of the first things I did on my spiritual journey. So like I don't really, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, what
Like
the hell?
also, I'm Holly's sister. We never addressed this at any point, but I'm gonna say it now because now I'm like, what? When I totally know that's the case, but it does actually do that to my brain. I started at the total opposite end of the spectrum. I still barely approach this stuff. So it blows my mind. Anyways, I just wanted because everyone in the audience needed the conversation to pause for like 3 seconds so they could just process for a second and go, wait, what was she wanting to do right at the beginning? Okay, anyway. Please continue.
I'm like over here, like, I'm gonna light a candle. Woo! She's like, I'm gonna step out of my body for a
Right?
bit.
I'm gonna take a bath. And Holly, meanwhile, is like, I'm going somewhere.
What if I left this fucking planet?
Like, is that very Pisces?
Right. That's why I wanted her to say what her big three were.
I don't know if I missed it or if you didn't say. Were you like young when this happened? Was this like literally just 3 years ago, or was it just 3 years ago that you were like practicing, knowingly practicing?
Knowingly practicing 3.5 years. I know I've been doing it longer than that, but I shouldn't say knowingly because I didn't realize I was astral projecting. I just knew I was going places. So, yes, 3.5 years. But and I think
you put the pieces together.
Yeah, and really, let's be real. 1 month that I have put the pieces together as how often I'm actually astral projecting. Thank you for inviting me on the podcast.
I feel like that's such a human thing to do, though, is just to put the pieces together, but that's not necessarily what energy is, or even other dimensions. Like, we just want to be like, oh, A, B, C, D, put it in a list and quantify it, whereas you really can't with energy, or I would assume astral projecting.
And that has been a big lesson for me that my brain, the way that I categorize information and store it and retrieve it and put it together, it doesn't apply the same way anymore. And so not to have to, but have to be given the opportunity to retrain my brain is really interesting and I consider myself a fairly flexible thinker, and I'm getting even more flexible. It's awesome. I love it. I'm sure people can relate to, but it's like for me, okay, so they're in this order today, but then this has shifted and now that order is no longer and they all mean this now and the order is completely different. Just understanding at a different level, or I will have interpreted something a certain way and then a month later be like, oh, there is also this aspect, the multidimensionality of our world. I think is what that is.
What should you do when you're astral projecting and you feel like you're stuck or you're scared?
I thought about this a lot. I would say, first of all, you can always leave, right? You have the power to leave. You have the power to command things from your space, to say things like, I don't consent. Those are all things that you can do anytime. And you can leave. You can decide that you're done if you're feeling scared or stuck. I think the invitation would be to maybe, if depending on the situation and the level of intensity in those emotions, would be to stop and consider why. Is it a feeling within that space that is making you feel scared or stuck? Is it a being? Is it something that's happening near you? And if, just to try to gather information for yourself. But that's only if you're feeling safe enough to do that. Otherwise, if you're feeling unsafe or stuck, leave. Just, I do not consent. I call my power back and wake up, because there's no use in staying in a situation that makes you feel unsafe. And also, depending on the intensity of those emotions, that's an energy you're creating, or, that's being created. And you don't want to sit in a space, or I'm saying you don't want to, like, I know what you want, but I personally would not want to sit in a space of fear or feeling unsafe. Does that
I
answer
like that you're like, call your energy back. I think that's really cool. Yeah, that definitely answered. Like, I've read a few things, like, but I've never successfully done it myself. But like one thing that I've heard is people sometimes will leave, like, whether it's a rope or a breadcrumbs or something, so they can just quickly go back.
Mhm.
So I like that you touch on just leave. It's okay. Just go. I would also like to know, what is the most profound thing you have ever experienced during astral travel?
I thought about this so much and I could not come up with one. So I think I have to like blanket it a little bit, because the healing is the thing that I have experienced that's the most profound. So I have experiences that are my favorite, you know what I mean? And that kind of thing, where I've had a lot of fun. I've done things like swim with dolphins and like whales and that kind of thing. And that is fun. I think one of the more profound times that I had was during, I was I was doing a meditation to try to meet my guides. This was at like a very beginning of my journey, and I had gotten in the water and was swimming with a dragon, and she had led me down to this place. And I think I mentioned it before. It looked like a courtyard kind of area, but there was a big fountain in this courtyard. And the fountain, have you guys ever seen the show The Magicians? And you know how they use the fountain system to travel? And that's what it reminded me of. And so not only did I get to see beings who were showing up as my guides, but I also was kind of guided to get into the fountain. And I realized I was going to be able to use that fountain to go places outside of what I was already doing. And so that was a big experience for me, because it changed where I was going and what I was seeing. I haven't been there in a long time, actually. Thank you for reminding me. Maybe I go there. We'll see.
What are your final thoughts for us? What's some advice you might leave us with? Do you have any, just general things that we missed?
Well, I think general advice would be to have fun. To keep some joy in your heart, be lighthearted about it. And knowing, trusting that in your shields, the safety protocols that you're using to keep yourself safe while you're doing this, and have fun. Let yourself be happy. Then those are the experiences that you may be drawing to yourself in that realm more too, right? I would also say creating and then kind of practicing in your waking life and in meditation, and some sort of SOP, standard operating procedure, a set of steps that you're going to take when you're in that state, so that it becomes a more and more automatic process for you. And there's less stopping and thinking about what you're doing and what might be going on and how to handle situations, so that you know that when you show up in a new situation, you already have an idea of how you want to go about handling that situation. Like, for instance, are you gonna try to talk to beings that you see? If you decide you're going to talk to them, are you going to make sure they're in alignment with you? If you're going to do that, how are you going to do that? Incorporating phrases so that they roll off your tongue. Like, I actually took a screenshot of this one because I really did want to say it, and it had to do with cloaking. Drop all veils of deception. Show me your true form. And that is something that you can say to beings. And repeating questions can often be helpful as well. So just going through and figuring out those things that you want to do when you're astral projecting so that they become a more and more automatic process. And then you can continue to deepen that feeling of safety and really get curious and explore what might be wanting to interact, what places you might be able to go. Because those places are all in different densities, different frequency bands, right? And as we are growing and expanding our energetic fields, raising our frequencies, going and visiting those places, you're getting to interact and receive information from dimensions and densities that are less polarized than ours, that have different modes of doing things, right? So you can receive more advanced healing. You can learn. It can help you remember. You can visit past lives. There's a lot of healing that can be done through astral projection and astral travel because you get to interact with, your soul field.
Thank you, Holly, for giving us that information. It's really nice to have that. Like, you may not be in my view, you're the expert here. So I'm like your expert opinion. It's so great. For everybody listening, we also wanted to offer some resources for astral projection. Some of the things that we have included are most of them, if not all of them, are books. The first one is Astral Projection, a guide on how to travel the astral plane and have an out-of-body experience. There's also Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe, Adventures Beyond the Body by William Buhlman, and Astral Dynamics by Robert Bruce. Hacking the Out of the Body Experience by Bob Peterson. Beyond Dreaming, an in-depth guide on how to astral project and have out-of-body experiences, how the awakening of consciousness is synonymous with lucid dreaming and astral projection. There's also Astral Projection, How to Change the Past and Shape the Future. Lightworker's Guide to the Astral Realm, an astral projection for empaths. There's Psychic Witch by Matt Oren, and A Witch's Travel Guide to Astral Realms by DJ Conway. You don't have to actually go out and buy any of these books. You can look at your local library. You can use an app like Libby, get those on Google Play. You can get those on App Store. You can get those on the internet, just going on the browser. So don't think that you have to go out and buy 20 books.
So let's start doing final thoughts. It's so hard for us. We're all kind of chomping at the bit to have Holly talk about this for 4 hours. Let's move on to final thoughts. First of all, very briefly, ladies, why do any of us think that it's important to talk about this? I think it's important to talk about astral projection because it is a place that people do start. When we were talking about where to put this episode for the show, some of us felt very strongly that it should occur in season 2, but we were all reminded that this is where Holly started her practice. So other people are like Holly and not like the rest of us. So I think it's important to talk about it early and often, because if you don't know what's happening to you, it can be quite frightening, or just, well, that happened and I have no idea why. And unless you hear other people talking about it, you don't necessarily know what's going on.
That flows perfectly into why I was going to say I felt like it was important, which is just for me personally, just eliminating fear around it. Something I'm kind of interested in, but I've been kind of afraid to do it. I just don't fully understand it. And now I'm kind of hearing like, oh, you may not fully understand it. And while there's stuff to be cautious of, it's like with like anything else almost, you just need proper training and intention. What about you, Kristen?
So when I first started, I had a little, okay, I had a Wicca book, and that's where I started. I got this one book on Wicca, and that's where I started. And it had a teeny tiny, I think it was probably like a page, if not a paragraph, of astral projection. And I was just like, that is the coolest thing ever. Like, if you could be any kind of magic in like the real world, I feel like that's what it is. And so for me, I was like, it was just this big, fantastical kind of idea where I'm like, oh my gosh, you can actually like, and then I went into the, people's stories and different, like, their like astral projection, out of body experiences on purpose, traumatically, different things. So, like, I think it is really important to talk about because there are some things that we can't explain. And I think that in my own logical brain, I want it to be explained. And I'm trying so hard to also not care about being explained and just being. So I think that's my opinion as to why I think it's important.
I think all of those things. I agree with all of you. And I think for me, it has just preparing to come onto the podcast, looking at your questions has helped me organize my thoughts around this subject and kind of give myself a little more definition around what I'm doing without closing any of those spaces so I can keep being flexible. It has really helped me do that. And I know, and this is not in a comparison kind of way, but it is very helpful to talk to other people and see what they're doing because for me, it has given me so many ideas. Other people will be like, oh, yeah, I was doing this. And then I went, or I was telling someone about some of the experiences I was having. And they said, oh, well, are you interacting with the things in that place? Are you picking up the books? Are you doing eight? And I was like, no, it never even occurred to me. I literally didn't even try. I didn't even have the thought. So it's not only can it help you solidify your own thoughts, but give you new ideas to talk about.
Let's talk about what it means if you can't astral project. Again, very briefly, what we all believe is the response to that. So if someone comes up to you and says, "Oh, I've tried, I just can't do it," or "I believe that I'm not capable of it," why do we think that that happens? My answer is that it's like an intuitive disconnect, right? A thing that I have felt more often than not in like states of depression, where you feel like you can't be in touch with that aspect of yourself.
For me, most of my issues with not being able to do it is control. It's very hard for me to let go and lose that control, mostly because of my trauma, and being outside of my body is not a good thing. So that can be kind of hard for me. So maybe working with some of those traumas or working towards healing on this plane will help to be able to also move you forward.
Kristen, that totally just like clicked together, like the difficulties that I have with it. But I didn't ever even considered it. Just like hearing you say it out loud.
Well, that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
See, important to talk about it. Good job, guys.
So I feel like for me, when I think about it, it's definitely a projection, right? Like I don't know what stops every individual, but I know the thing that makes me feel stopped or stuck or like I'm not able to is just exactly what you guys are talking about, just being afraid, not the lack of control, just a little bit of that like anxiety about the unknown, a lot of pretty mundane feelings, really. So I love this kind of thing. I think this is so good for all us. Now we can be like, I'm not afraid anymore.
And I would say that I definitely agree with what you guys have all said. That it's easy for me, it has been very easy to have those kind of stories that I'm telling myself, oh, I can't see that. I don't see that. I'm not hearing that. I don't astral project. I can't, and so to catch those when I start to say them to myself, because it's not even like I'm always saying them in words. Sometimes it's just kind of a feeling I'm carrying around with me, but to catch that and just be like, hey, but the truth is, you can when you're ready and you choose to, when you want to, you can.
But a real quick ride on that, Holly. Do you feel that everyone can astral project?
At this moment in time, I will say yes, I do.
Good way to answer.
Two of my favorite qualifiers. This moment in time.
To segue into the next episode, what do we think is the difference between dream magic and astral projection? And then how do you also tell the difference?
I have to say the best answer I could come up with was in one, you're asleep.
What about daydreaming?
That's exactly true. But I mean, like, honestly, I personally believe that there is a lot of overlap between astral projection and dreams. And I know that there's a lot of overlap with travel in general and dreams. You can do a lot when you're dreaming.
Do you guys remember those SAT questions that were like all snorks are sneezels, but not all sneezels are flips? So are all flips snort? Do you know what I'm talking about? I feel like dreams and astral projection, there's something there, right? Like maybe not all dreams are astral projection. Well, okay, maybe that's not right, but somewhere in there, you're feeling where I'm going, right? Like there's it's like maybe not every astral projection is a dream, but lots of dreams are astral projections, vice versa. I don't know. Like I guess crossover was fine. I felt like my analogy was really strong going into it. It started to fade as I spoke it into life, but like painted a picture.
So I have I see these questions and I have two thoughts. One, when you're dreaming, you're not necessarily traveling. You could be doing things but I feel like the piece of astral projection that is important is that you're actually envisioning going somewhere. And I'll have dreams like of things, but not of myself going somewhere, or I'll have dreams of myself in this reality, but I'm not going places. Whereas in dreams where you go places, I would say potentially that is astral projection while you're dreaming, right? I would also raise the question of daydreaming and then talk about brain frequencies. So we have different frequencies that unlock different states of consciousness. There are different Hertz frequencies that when your brain hears them for a specific amount of time, you induce like focus states, meditative states, dream states, emotional states, things like that. And I feel that dream, meditative, and astral projection states it's all the same hertz, the same frequency. And I could be wrong, but from what I remember reading, that's right. Kristen.
God, I love that you touched on the freaking frequencies of sound because that's something that I use often when I'm like in the bathtub doing my baths and soaks and things because I'll like have different frequencies to kind of help me in that meditative state. So I like how you bunched it all together. Like, they're kind of all like cousins. They're in the same family, but maybe not exactly the same. So I definitely feel there's a lot of overlap, a lot of bleed through from one to the other. I do feel that there is something to say for the brain processing not just the day's events, but your body's also stores memory. So that memory as well. I think that a lot of dreaming can be your emotional state, not so much necessarily traveling places. So it's so hard to say because I mean, we can study it as much as we want to, but we don't actually know. We can't attach an electrode or like a tracker to a spirit or an energy to see where it goes. So yeah, I would say that while it's almost like what Heidi was saying, well, some dreams are astral projection, not all astral projection is dreaming. So it's a hard question to answer.
Sounds like we all have some interesting thoughts about dreams. Sounds like Holly has some more she could be sharing with us.
Right. I'm glad that you said that, Heidi. I hope that today's episode got everyone listening curious and excited about our next episode. Did you like that segue?
That's what we call a hard segue.
I'm really good at them. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. I'm Allyson Hemma-Romane. You can find me on Instagram at Jupiter's Omens, and you can follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at A Dark Path Podcast. Holly, would you like to say goodbye to everybody? Because we didn't necessarily put that in the outline, but you're welcome to. I'm sure they would love to hear you say goodbye.
No, I just want to say thank you for having me on and talking with me. It was fun to talk with you guys.
Made me so happy. I'm Heidi Stock, and you can find me on social media at Wise Wolfcraft. You can also find us on Patreon at patreon.com/adarkpath.
I am Kristen Jackson. You can find me on Instagram at Angie's Artistry. If you have any questions for the show, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at adarkpathpodcast@gmail.com. Join us next time on this journey down a dark path. May your candles burn bright, and if you hear footsteps, don't worry, it's probably just us.
It is now that our time together must come to an end. Thank you for joining us on this journey, a dark path come to a bend. Find us here bi-monthly on your favorite place to stream, and follow us on social media for news in between. A dark path is there, winding and waiting ever. May you craft peace, knowledge, and alignment, so shall it be, or something better.